Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience. Welcome to the Catalyst webinar series presented by the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA. The Catalyst webinar series is a bi-weekly educational platform for creating success and change in your club and career. Very excited to have famous Gary McCord joining us this morning, accomplished tour player and commentator for many years. He's been retired now for a little bit. He's also an author and Southern California boy. Good morning, Mr. McCord. Thank you very much for joining us on the Catalyst webinar series.
You got it, John. How are you doing?
Good, sir. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
They're always technical, right? That's why they're technical.
We got a big crowd this morning. We got about 63 PGA members that are joining us this morning. And this is kind of a fireside chat format. We just want to interview you. We're grateful for your time. We know that you're busy. I believe you're at Whisper Rock out in Scottsdale.
No, it's 112 there. No. I learned a long time ago you can't live in Arizona when the lizards go underneath the rocks. That means you get out of town. So we've lived in Colorado now for about 30 years. So for 6 months, we're in Colorado right now.
Okay. And we're going to go through your golf career and your commentating career. Why don't you start with you were born in San Gabriel, moved to Riverside, I think, when you were 16. And I don't think you started playing golf until you were 16. You were a pitcher prior to that. Can you tell us a little bit about your beginnings with this game?
Yeah, you know, when you're young, you're just kind of messing around. Garden Grove, I went to Garden Grove High School for 1 year. And I remember I was a pitcher, but my arm blew up. And I got pretty good. 100 years ago, and my arm blew up, and I really couldn't lift my elbow above my shoulder to come out of place. So it was really good in school. There was a reason I couldn't raise my hand for the answer. I had none, but my arm would go out of place. So when we moved, we went from Garden Grove to Riverside. I had nothing to do, didn't know anybody, so my parents just dropped me off at Fairmont Park Golf Course, and I just grabbed some clubs. I don't know where I got them. And just started walking around all day. My parents would drop me off at 8 in the morning, and I'd go play with the old guys there and learn how to read dandelions and greens and stuff like that, and just kind of learn how to play golf, basically. And then
your parents didn't play. What prompted them to just drop you off at the driving range?
Well, my dad played. Mom didn't, and I wanted to play golf. I mean, that's the only thing didn't hurt, right, with my arm. So I just went out and started playing and learn how to dig it out of the ground and get it going forward. I do remember in high school, I went to the golf coach at Garden Grove High School, and he said, "Can you break 90?" And I lied and said yes. And I'd never broken 90 because I played like twice. So that's how I remember that I didn't start till real late. And so I was 16, I think, when I started playing, and no idea, just hit balls, empirical knowledge at that point. You hit balls, fling it out there, and if it went good, you try to remember that feeling. If it didn't, get rid of that feeling. And
was there any high school golf in Riverside?
Yeah. And then I started playing on the golf team there at Ramona High School, then went to Riverside City College, and then UCR, and I did pretty well. We're a small college, and I think I was runner-up in the college division, they called it then. Okay, it wasn't the big schools, it was the secondary schools. So I was runner-up in 69 and then won it in 70. So I came a long way for not knowing what I'm doing at 16 to winning the NCAA at 18. I mean, I had no idea, no clue.
No, in 2 years' time. I know you played college golf, I believe, against Andy Tooney, didn't you?
Yes. For years, yes. And, SoCal, all those guys. I mean, we all grew up together. We all started playing the mini tours together, roamed around the country. And then eventually a few of us got on tour, went out there and banged it around and tried to beat guys that have won the NCAA 3 or 4 times. And that proves futile sometimes, more than not.
You didn't start commentating until after the age of 50, correct?
Yeah. I started in '86 working for CBS, Happen Chance deal. And I was in '86. I don't know how old I was in '86.
When you say happenstance deal, how did you transition from playing into commentating? How did that come about?
I was in Colonial playing at Fort Worth at the Colonial Championship. The next tournament was Jack Nicklaus's tournament. It's an invitational, and I was on the tour policy board. And that time we had three players that represented the tour, and I was one of those guys. That's how desperate they were. And I was on an airplane going from Fort Worth to Columbus for policy board meetings on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I had nothing to do after that. And when I got in the airplane, all the boys from CBS were up front, obviously. Frank Chirkinian, producer, director, Pat Summerall, Ken Venturi, Ben Wright, I forgot who else. Anyway, they were hooting and hollering, and they sent a bottle of wine back to me in 27C. And while I was going up to thank them, I thought, why don't I ask and see if I can just go out? I'm making decisions as to CBS, NBC, and ABC at that time for contracts for television. I had no idea what a televised golf tournament entails. No idea. So I kind of conned my way into getting a free room with them to be able to just go watch for the weekend in the trucks. And so I went out on Friday. Frank goes, all right, come on out Friday. So I go there Friday, go into the trucks. And I get there and somebody says, hey, McCord's here. And he turned around and goes, go out to 16. And I said, well, I want to watch this. I said, get out to 16. And I thought, oh boy. So I start walking out to 16, and what I'm thinking I'm going to be doing, when a caddy misses the cut, he goes to CBS, see if there's any work, and they put most of them to work as spotters. Spotter, you got a headset on, you're on the tee on a par 3, and let's say Freddie Couples is there with Joe LaCava at that time, and Fred pulls out the club, and Joe throws you this. He's hitting a 7-iron. I'd say 7-iron, it goes back to the trucks, and now the announcers know what he's hitting. That's what I thought I was going to do. So kind of despondently, I wandered out to the 16th. It's a tee. And then Vern Lundquist, who was in the tower, started screaming up, hey, get up here, get up here. And I thought, okay. So I walked up and I said, yeah. And he handed me a headset. And he said, Frank wants to try as an announcer. So that's how I got started. Then I did the next week and just kept doing it until I finally made him sign a contract after 3 years of $500 a weekend and a free room. If I missed the cut, I would go up there. And then if I made the cut, I was usually early enough to go back up and do the telecast on the weekend. So I started doing 2 jobs at that time. And that's how I got in television. Just total happen chance.
So that was almost a 20-year run with CBS, correct?
34.
34.
Long time. Long time.
And can you talk a little bit about your retirement or your exit from NBC? And I know you've been candid about that in the past.
Yeah, I mean, it was, where we were there, Peter Costas and I were there for 34 years. He was there for probably 20. Jim Nance and I came out the same time. Jim came a week after I did. So we're going along pretty good there, and everything's great. And then they decided, I don't know who decided. There's a lot of rumors. The PGA Tour at that time, they were negotiating a new contract, media rights contract for $5.1 billion that runs now from 22 to 30. And we think that the PGA Tour told networks to start getting younger. NBC, they start firing all the old guys, right? And then at CBS, they literally got rid of the 4 oldest guys. Interesting. And so we don't know whether it was the tour that did that in these negotiations for media rights contract, or whether it was the networks themselves wanting to get younger. I don't know. Anyway, they want to get younger, so it was time. It was COVID. I would have to go every Thursday down, and during COVID they did studio shows. So the studio shows was done out of Orlando at the Golf Channel studios. So I would have had to fly every Thursday into Orlando, there for 3 days doing that, and fly back Monday. And I'd had to do that for like 23 weeks. And during COVID, I wasn't I wasn't about to do that. It was just, I'm too old for that crap. So I just, they just said, okay, we're not going to extend the contract. And that was it.
So more on show business. I know that you were an integral part of producing Tin Cup. You know, there's famous golf movies of all time, Caddyshack. Tin Cup is definitely in that genre. Can you talk a little bit about what that experience was like producing that movie? And I think you were integral in recruiting the PGA Tour players for the scenes in the movie that required PGA Tour players. Can you talk about how you got into that whole thing?
Yeah, it was kind of strange too. I got a call from my agent and he said, listen, I've got a script here. I said, what do you mean a script? I got a script from Hollywood, from Warner Brothers. And I said, yeah. And they said, well, they want you to take part in a movie that's coming out. And I go, what? And I said, well, send it to me. I didn't know what he was talking about. So I get this script.
Because at that point, you had never been in a movie before. You never had anything to do with movies, no productions, no nothing like that.
Yeah. Well, we've done some television stuff. Jim Nansen, myself, and Faraday had done some CSIs and stuff like that. I had not done a movie at that time. So I get this script and they say they want you to be in the movie. So the first thing you do with the script, I mean, you look at the cover page on it, and it said Warner Brothers, working title, Tin Cup, Kevin Costner, Ron Shelton, writing and directing, Gary Foster producing. Okay. And then what you do is you go through it. You don't really read the script. You go through it to see how many times your name's there, right? Just say, am I just in the movie for one scene, or is this thing a constant? And I looked, I was in there a lot. There was a lot of script in there. And and then I read it. And when I read it, a lot of the stuff in there I had done. And I thought, no one knows I did that. Nobody. Because that was the time we're talking about, this is 96. So, social media wasn't that rampant at that point. You had no way to understand the rumors and everything. So I called my agent. I said, listen, if this is on the legit, they wanted me to, in the thing they said, we want you to act in the movie. We want you to be the technical director of the movie for all the golf stuff. And you had to teach Kevin and his co-conspirator how to play golf, so it looks like they're PGA Tour level. And I went, well, this is kind of, I need to talk to Ron. I didn't know Ron. I obviously knew who Ron Shelton was. So I got a hold of him. I got his number, called him, and we talked for about 5 minutes. You get to read the script, and I said, yeah. I said, listen, where'd you get this stuff in there about somebody making a 15 on one hole and being very obstinate and not dropping up by the green and dropping there? He goes, you did it at Colonial in Memphis. I go, I did do that at Colonial in Memphis, but no one knows about it. He goes, yeah, it's an article. There's an article in Golf World at that time. And I go, BS. And he goes, and he sent me the article and was in there. And then the Pelican story I did in Pensacola, from my back bedroom. We were gambling. There was a rain out. There's 4 of us in the 4 golfers in the deal in the condo, and the Pelican in Pensacola. We were sitting on an inlet, and we had a wharf on this condo we were renting, and it was about 150 yards away. And I went to the back to take a leak. We were playing gin that day. It was a washout for the day. And a Pelican landed there. So I got the boys and I said, give me 10 shots from my bedroom. And I bet you I can hit it through the house, through the windows, through over the patio, out to the wharf. And I bet you I can knock that Pelican off its perch in 10 shots. I did it on the first one, which arguably is the best shot I've ever hit in my life. And that got in. And Ron picked both of those and decided to do part of the movie that way. So basically that's how it started. I went, you don't get an opportunity to do these a lot, if ever, right? So I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I had a hell of a schedule. I was still doing television. I was still playing a little bit, doing a bunch of outings. And then I had 3 months in Arizona and in Houston where we shot it. But I had to be there literally every day. So it it got quite, I was quite busy at that point, but it was a ball. It was an absolute ball.
So when it came to finding other PGA Tour talent to be on it, of course, as you know, being in that world, when you're filming and you're around a set, there's a lot of downtime where you're just sitting there. How did you go about selecting fellow PGA Tour players to come be in the movie with you?
That was interesting. Gary Foster and I, we would sit down in the office and figure out all this stuff, everything about golf. Who to get, what sponsors to put on their hats, stuff like that, everything. And it came up for the players. So the first thing is you absolutely hit on is the fact that you cannot get A-type personalities because you're sitting around on your rear end all day long. And you get up in the morning and you go sit in your rear end the whole day long the next day. And then all of a sudden you might get your chance to do your thing, and then you got to sit around again. So you can't get a guy that's had too much coffee. You need the guys that are laid back. So I went out, Freddie Couples. I had all these guys. I had a bunch of guys in Arizona because it was close. But then I think we had like 30 guys, and we're sitting around one day and with Gary Foster, and I said, "What are you going to pay these guys?" And he says, "Well, we're just gonna pay them scale on this." And I've got, we had to get the boys out there, so we had some big names. Jake was there, Freddie, and blah blah blah. You go down the list, and I'm sitting there thinking, man, I'm going to have to deal with 30 agents. Well, that is not fun. Okay, I'm going to have to negotiate with every one of them. It is going to be a pain in the ass. And I thought, okay, and I'm sitting there, and the next morning I called Gary Foster. I said, "Gary, need to talk to you." "All right, I'll meet you in the thing." I said, "Got an idea. Here's the deal. Can I have Kevin and Don Johnson for a night, for a dinner?" And he goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "All these players, I'm going to go after the wives." And I said, "I'm going to find out how good these guys can act." And I told him the idea. Going to invite him to a dinner, all the tour wives. It was in Tucson. And then go through the tour wives to get the players there. And he goes, "That's a great idea." So we talked to Kevin and Don. I said, "Okay, boys, I want to watch. I want you to absolutely make these women swoon. You're movie stars." So we got a lot of the wives there. I don't know how many there are, 25. And I watched Kevin and Don Johnson put on one of the great shows of all time, just catering to the girls, just having a ball at dinner. We got done. Every one of the wives came up to me and said, "Okay, when do you need them?" And so it worked. It basically worked. We didn't have to deal with one agent, not one. There was only one player, I won't mention his name, that wanted to get paid a lot more and needed, and his agent showed up there. And we dealt with that. But the others were perfect. They had a ball. Freddie was there. Freddie stayed even when he wasn't working. We didn't need him for, like 2-3 weeks. Freddie just stayed there. He had so much fun riding around the cart, doing stuff, watching him shoot stuff. So we got the right guys, and we definitely got the right price. I think scale of $60 a day and meals, in the tent, and that was it. You see these golfers out here making a bunch of money, and they're all sitting around having a ball, eating in the tent with Cheech and Don and Kevin, and they all had a good time.
So shifting gears to a little more personal territory here. I know you have, I think, 3 adult or 4 adult grandchildren. I think you've got some great grandchildren by this point.
Yes, I've got 4 granddaughters, and I've got 7 great grandchildren and another one on the way, so there'll be 8. And then and that's only 3 of them. The other one's not married yet. So I'm easily double digits as far as great grandchildren, and that's old. When you get double digits great grandkids, you're old. There's just no way around it.
Is there golfers in the family?
Not yet. They're all obviously they're all young. The oldest one we've got is, I think, 6. So they're really young now. So yeah, they might. All the husbands play golf. So, one of them might say, here, great grandpa, show me how to hold the club or something, but I'm not gonna push anything.
Now, obviously, you still play all the time. Can you talk a little bit about, do you believe the Morad method still holds up today with the modern golf swing?
Yeah, no question. Mac's stuff is, he's basically the tree now of all the teaching going on. He investigated more than anybody, believe me. I was with him for 12 years. He investigated more than anybody and really came up with a sound, a sound. No, it's not a system. There were variables throughout the model, but he actually and basically set up as a model. And if you do this, this is going to happen, and blah blah blah, to start from. And it was good. It worked, right-handed, left-handed. We had to all learn how to hit left-handed through the model, but it still holds up. It really does hold up.
And can you talk about how what role working with Mac played in your career?
Well, I couldn't beat anybody, and then I started working with Mac when I quit, and because I was getting excited playing the Champions Tour, Senior Tour as it was called then, and to try all this stuff. And I won twice. I won the Charles Schwab tournament at the end of the year, and I think I only played 17 events, and everybody was playing about 36 events. So it worked. It proved to me it worked, and I didn't, I learned it when I was doing the telecast, and I had to play the next week. I had to hit the ground running. I couldn't go out and practice and try to find my game. I had to find it, and I worked out while I was doing the telecast up in the tree houses we have. I had bands and everything else up in the telecast. I'm pulling and pushing because I didn't want to hurt anything, going out to hit balls, because it was labor intense to do all that at that time. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to go out and play and beat somebody finally. Too late, but you have your own personal goals.
Now, also talking a little bit about the PGA Tour and what's going on in professional golf in our world, can you kind of give us your insight on where you think the game is going, and what we can be optimistic about and what we should be a little more pessimistic about going forward?
I think the pessimism is running rampant, and the optimism is faint at this point. I have no idea what's going on. I can speculate. Where I play out of in Arizona, there's 37 tour pros there, and a few of them are on the players advisory councils and stuff like that. So I get all sorts of rumors, substantial rumors. And from what I understand, no one knows anything that's going on. Nothing. It looks like the players are now trying to run their own tour, which is interesting. As you know, in '68 we split from the PGA of America, Arnold and Jack, and they kind of ran it themselves for a while, which means Mark McCormick ran it. And then they hired Dean Beeman. I think Dean was in '73 to run it, and then he got the foundation down. I started on the board in '83 through '87. So I was in on a lot of the stuff that just started at that point. And it was mostly, all the ideas and everything came from what they were independent directors, and they were from the business world. And I had, on our board, I had E. Card Walker from Disney. He was the CEO of Disney. And Bob Kirby, he was the CEO of Westinghouse. And I'd sit there with Bob next to him. And we've got we're reading these things. Well, I don't know what's going on. And Bob, how do we vote on this one? Well, here's what happens. Da, 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 da. So we had someone there to ask questions to, right? Well, now all of a sudden on the board of the tour, they got 7 players. All the independent directors are leaving or have left. So it's Monahan and 7 players. Now, I'm pretty sure the last time any one of these 7 players had a job, it was a paper route. some when they were 8 or 9. So are we taking this business now that with SSG coming in and giving us $3 billion? Are we going to take this and the tours players are going to run it because now they have equity in this game? They own the tour. They own part of the tour. So this gets really interesting. No business guys running it. We got $3 billion. We're supposed to go together with Live and coexist. I don't think that's going to work. And again, no one knows anything going on. Nothing. So you look at it. Live has got a PIF and that fund that is run by Yasser. That is $752 billion. Okay, they're going to win. That's the first thing. They're going to win. They got the most money. Now we're going to dance around and try to somehow exist with them in a business world. I don't know how that's going to be done. I have no idea.
What do you think is most likely going to happen?
Well, real fast, what I would do, as you know, the European tour now, the DP World Tour, okay? DP is mostly and a lot of Saudi money. They are nothing more now than a feeder for the PGA Tour. They're a Corn Ferry Tour over there. Their top 10 guys from the DP World Tour, the European Tour / gets to 10 spots. 10 top guys get in. They're all playing over here. Okay. There's no, I think I read something the other day. In the last 176 days, there's only been one guy in the top 20 in the world play on the European Tour. So it's a feeder tour now. It's 45 events and it's $148 million in prizes with world ranking points. I see Liv going in and buying that tour. And they got world ranking points. And they got tournaments. They got 45 of them. They can take what they want and then throw out the rest, but they got world ranking points. So all of a sudden now they're legit. They can exist in the golf world independently because they can now tell their players, you can go play, and the better you play, you're going to be able to get in the majors and blah, blah, blah. So what I see is if they buy the DP World Tour and they set up, they have 14 events now, Live. Let's say they play 25. So let's say 6 times a year, the top 75 guys in the world play somewhere. Singapore, Adelaide, play somewhere, Abu Dhabi, St. Louis, whatever. 6 times a year, they play for $30 million, the top 75 in the world. Now, what you do here basically is the one tournament that we have with the PGA of America owns is the Ryder Cup, which is quite festive, okay? And that's kind of what we want for television. We want people that are fighting against each other. Well, we've already got that built in. We got Liv, and Liv hates the PGA Tour. The PGA Tour hates Liv. What better way than to show that with these guys playing against each other 6 times a year in the Galaxy Tour, whatever it is. So they play 6 times a year. That would be, you got 4 majors, that's 10. You got a couple other you got to play in, Players Championship and all that kind of stuff. So these guys be playing 22 to 25 events with the six tournaments, let's say, that would be the Galaxy Tour, the big ones that they're all going to show up to because they're all eligible if you get in the top 75. And that way you could, I'm a television guy, so you can market that. You can market the animosity. You can market the competitiveness of those guys that really don't like each other. And that way you go back, they can go play their tour, we play ours. You exist 6 times a year, or the Ryder Cup or whatever. Everybody gets playing everything now because there's world ranking points. So you could do it that way. That seems fairly easy to me to do. And whether they do it or not, I don't know. No, again, we'll go back. No one knows what the hell is going on. Nobody's saying a word. And I find that really interesting. Even the players don't know. And supposedly it's the players' tour, and they don't know what's going on. So I don't know when this, I don't know when the situation is going to get any clarity to it or anything. I have, there's no end to this. There's no sudden date that they go, okay, by October the 1st, this has to be done. There's nothing. Every week they go, well, we're working on it. So it's really interesting. Really interesting.
Very, for us PGA professionals that are on the call this morning, what's your advice for us?
It's you guys are the roots of the game. Okay. You guys could have, there's an interesting scenario out there that you could have tournaments. Let's see, how do I put this? If the tour loses, it's 501c6. Okay. Right now we're a nonprofit, and there's certain senators and congressmen up in front of committees that have got a mandate that states we shouldn't be. Baseball had it, lost it in 2007. Football, NFL had it, and they lost theirs in 2015. So you can imagine if we lose our tax exempt status, all of a sudden every tournament's going to be played under different guidelines as far as tax purposes. Meaning, just for example, you would basically, if you owned the franchise, okay, let's say I live in Arizona, you've got the waste management tournament. If that was independent, that would be a franchise, and you build equity in that franchise. You get people who invest money, and then all of a sudden we see how big we can get this thing. Mo is pretty big right now, right? And at that point, the local PGA of America would have a huge input. They would be running the tournament because it coincides with growing the game. And the PGA members at clubs are the ones that grow the game. And they could expand the game if, instead of 46 events on the tour that were controlled by the tour, if they were all independent and they were a franchise and equity, and then the local PGA of America members would help in running all these tournaments for golf, for the good of golf, which puts a whole different deal on it. And I'm so far ahead of my skis on that. But these things right now could happen. Any of these things could happen. We don't know. We absolutely don't know.
So it sounds like there's a fair amount of optimism in your voice. I asked you this question a couple of years ago when you were on, and I'll ask you this again, our final question. Who are you rooting for? It sounds like you're rooting for unity and synergy between the LIV and PGA Tour.
I don't think there has to be a synergy between it. For the good of the game, we can't take our talent and we can't erode that talent by having them play all over different places and not against each other. We're not that strong. There's only one guy that moved the needle, and that was Tiger. If Tiger played, your tournament was a success. If he didn't, now you had to get these other guys into play. We're deep in talent, but we're not deep in really superstars. Scotty Scheffler, a superstar, is a hell of a player, but he's just a nice guy that goes about his business, family man. That's not a superstar. Ludwig Oberg, he's playing college golf last year. He's 4th in the world now. He's going to be a superstar, but is he volatile? No, he's not. He's not Tiger. So it's hard to do this without getting these guys together as a unit. And then the best players in the world play against each other. Okay. You've seen the television ratings. They're getting better now, but you've seen sponsors. Sponsors they're leaving. They're out. They've had enough. They don't want anything to do with it anymore. So, because you can't deplete the talent you have and put it somewhere where you can't see these guys, the other guys, the good players that want to play against the good players. So we need to get all these guys together again to play in some kind of format and quit screwing around with this fractionalizing what talent we have and putting them all over different parts of the world, never to be seen again. That's my opinion.
Now, when you said Galaxy Tour, did you just make that up?
Yeah.
Purposely?
Yeah, I podcast the other day, and I said, okay, here's how this thing could work. And we could coexist, which will end up doing that, coexisting. And because it's all world ranking points. That's all it is. If they don't get them, they're not going anywhere. If they get them, and then all of a sudden you could figure out something that's beneficial to the game of golf and television. And that's what we need again, because this contract runs out in 2030 with the current media rights contract. And that will be interesting when that happens because of what's going on. But you've seen what sponsors are doing now, starting with Honda. Been there for 54 years. They went out. RBC now is yelling, screaming, you guys better get this figured out. We're running a bunch of players here. We're running a bunch of tournaments. We're looking to get now. But you know, San Diego, they lost theirs, blah, blah, blah. So these guys are leaving right in the middle of these contracts. So it's not good. The whole thing's not good. And when you're putting that much money in something, you want your basis, you want your foundation, that business to be solid. And we're anything but that.
Right. Well, fantastic. Well, on behalf of the Education Committee for the Southern California PGA, want to thank you for making the time to join us this morning, Gary. Your insight and story is amazing, and we're grateful to have had you on. For all the PGA members that are on this morning's webinar, you will receive 1 PDR credit for joining Gary's Catalyst, his fireside chat. And thank you for supporting the Catalyst. And Mr. McCord, thank you very much. Take care of yourself out there, and we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And all you guys out there, keep up the good work. You're the guys growing the game, not the tour. You guys are. So keep it up.
Thank you, Gary. Take care, everybody.